Welcome. I am so happy to connect with you today. I am thinking that I would like to share a little bit about making your own sacred calendar today. And part of the thinking around that is that I just updated mine. So maybe 7 years ago, 10 years ago even, I actually sat down and looked at some of the calendars that I saw going out into the world and said, okay, they have all of these days, these holidays, these holy days marked on the calendar. Which ones do I actually care about or celebrate? And I quickly realized that there were two levels, many levels of caring. One was, I get a day off of work. One was, this one is celebrated so widely that I really want to know that it's happening, whether I celebrate it or not, because it's going to impact me, or because I would like to honor and acknowledge the people who do celebrate that. And then there were the things worth celebrating to me, the things that I found worth celebrating. And one of the other things that I did at that point when I started making my list was that I started kind of looking at the circle of the year and where those different holidays or celebrations that I already cared about, where they were. And then I started looking at the idea that I wanted to celebrate throughout the year. So were there holidays that I could add in that would be fun to celebrate, maybe even from a tradition that I had not looked into before? Were there other types of celebrations that didn't necessarily already have ties to a specific day that I could just plunk down in that area where there were no other things being celebrated? And of course, for me, because I'm pagan, there are basically 8 primary celebrations throughout the year anyway. And it's funny, I don't actually celebrate all of those. They're not all that important to me. But some of them are. And I wanted to recognize all of them, even if I wasn't going to be celebrating them actively. And so I created, oh, that's funny, I'm just seeing this word over here. I created a map of my holidays and a list of my holidays. And what I realized was that for me, even more than most of the pagan holidays throughout the year, like, Imbolc, I don't even know how you pronounce that one, actually, or Yule, things like that, even more important than those for me were the moons, of which there are usually 13 throughout the year, 12 to 13 moons every year. And there's the full moon, which is kind of stereotypically what witches celebrate. And then there's the new moon, or the dark of moon, which is when the earth passes between the sun and the moon to the point that the moon is not able to reflect the sun's light. And you have darkness, and that is the dark of the moon, and it's the other half of that revolution, of that movement that happens every month. And biologically speaking, it was the moon's interaction with the water here on Earth that created an opportunity for life, that created life here on Earth billions of years ago. And that to me is kind of magical and worth celebrating. The fact that this circumstance happened that created an opportunity for me to exist, for trees to exist. I certainly celebrate trees. And I was also at about that same time, I read, oh no, this was a couple of years before that, I came across a book called Full Moon Feast by Jessica Prentice, and it is Jessica, I believe, has a very small amount of Native American heritage, and so she actually went and did original research to talk with the record keepers and to look at the traditions of a certain group of Plains Indians, of Native American people, to find out what they called those moons throughout the year and why. And for her, it was a food pilgrimage. It was about her relationship with food and trying to get healthy with that and trying to have a value system that that felt right to her in relation to food. And what she discovered was that there are foods that are not just seasonal in the sense of, oh, it's summer and these things are going to be cheaper in the grocery store now because they're easier to grow. But beyond that, back when we were really living on the land, in any culture or tradition around the world, each moon had a relationship to what kind of food you could expect or what kind of weather you could expect. Like, what were the telling pieces of our relationship to the land at that point in the year. And so I looked, when I then went and made this calendar for myself of what was important to me around the year and around the holidays and all of that, I looked at those names for each moon according to the full moon feast calendar. And then I also did another look at what sort of modern pagans were calling each moon, which was another different thing altogether. And then later on, just a few years ago, I actually took a year-long traditional Native American drum healing workshop with my teacher and with both of my teachers. And through that, I learned that locally here where I live, the Native American tribes had their own names for the moons, and then also locally a very recent group that was led by a Native American man named Sun Bear had their names for the calendar for the moons. And so all of these pieces are there. And then I thought, well, I had participated in a celebration for the Day of the Dead, a midnight celebration to honor the Day of the Dead that was definitely co-opted. Although I didn't understand these things at the time that I participated, it was a bunch of mostly white folk taking on these traditions and thinking they were cool and parading around my town, and that is what it is. But I felt a connection to honoring, the Day of the Dead, the All Souls Day, All Saints Day. All of those days actually happen like back to back in a 3-day period, and they come from, each of them, from different traditions and different belief systems. But they're all based around the fact that there's a point where we want to honor our ancestors and we want to honor the dead and we want to acknowledge that undying energy that happens in a life, or in many lifetimes, depending on what you believe. And so I started making these lists and I started researching, well, what are the Buddhist days of celebration? And this was actually the first time that I discovered that what I think of as, I call it Candlemas. I think it's got a different name in pagan world as well, but early February there's a day that we celebrate that's basically the candles and celebrating the light, and Bridget if you're Celtic, and all this sort of thing. And there's a day that's very close to that in the Chinese calendar, that's their Lunar New Year, and I was always celebrating the New Year, the dark of the moon, the new moon. For me, holds a lot of energy. And to discover that there is actually a huge culture out there that celebrates the new moon as the start of the calendar year made so much sense to me. So I started pulling these little pieces and what were Jewish holidays and what were Muslim holidays, and how could I honor all of these pieces respectfully and privately in my own little way? Or did I just even want them listed on my calendar so that I would know to be respectful of other people who might be celebrating those things at that time, or might be remembering difficult memories that are held by their culture and by their heritage of experience during certain times. And an outcropping of that was realizing that I wanted to rename certain holidays for my own purposes, for my own personal calendar, such as Christmas, because really Yule is so specific and so traditional that it doesn't fit what I do for that holiday, which I do celebrate Christmas with my family, but I'm not Christian, and calling it Christmas is kind of weird for me. And like, what was I really celebrating at that time? Or Thanksgiving, Native American people, celebrating Thanksgiving is a little bit like celebrating the Holocaust. Like, we want to honor the losses. We don't want to party out and say thank goodness for them. No, no, no. So my family gets together on what is generally called Thanksgiving and has a big meal together and really appreciates each other as a family. And so I've started calling that Family Day, because really, to me, it's not about the nursery rhymes that I learned in school about, the pilgrims and the turkey feathers and the, whatever, the blunderbusses and the popcorn and all of those things. It's about family. And it's about celebrating the fact that I love people and people love me enough that we get together and eat a whole bunch of food and spend 6 hours in each other's company. And we enjoy it. And the food is really good. And it's Family Day. And generally in my family, we invite the people that we know who don't necessarily have other places that they would like to go on that day to join us, because really it's about who you choose to be with, and it's about sharing and caring for us, for my family. And so I celebrate Family Day. I don't really celebrate Thanksgiving. I also tend to, the day before Thanksgiving, I tend to take a moment and honor and mourn all of the things that were taken and all of the lives that were taken from Native American people, from the First Nations who have lived here and continue to live here without equal rights, without recognition of their prior claims, without any sort of human decency or honoring of treaties or much of anything else having happened in a way that I would respect. And so then there's Christmas. And what I realized is that for me, yes, that's a day for children. The 25th is a day for children or for families or for giving, for that opportunity to give. But the 24th, the people who are in a role of mothering, so not always the mothers, sometimes the fathers, sometimes the grandparents, sometimes the aunt or the adopted family, whoever that is, people are staying up late, and probably for months beforehand they've been saving pennies or going short on their own needs in order to have enough money or enough resources, or staying up late and going short on sleep to make things for the children, for the people in their lives who they love. And that's deep, that's powerful, that's love, that's worth celebrating, is that love and that self-sacrifice that is done joyfully over an extended period of time. So I call the night of the 24th the Night of the Mothers. And I actually found out that that is very close to a day in old time traditions that was used to celebrate Astarte, and other goddesses of certain stars and certain traditions relating to motherhood and womanhood and goddesshood in a taking care of people, taking care of family, matriarchal sort of way. And I found the relationship to the star on the 24th, and the relationship to the mother, and the relationship to self-sacrifice and to caring and loving, to be really relevant. All of those things kind of speak to a variety of traditions in my mind. So I celebrate the Night of the Mothers, and I do it quietly. Personally, I light a candle. I think grateful, loving thoughts towards my mother and towards many other people who have nurtured me or continue to nurture me in my life, because that is, in my mind, that's a worthy sacrifice. That's something I want to be part of, a tradition I would like to continue to honor, and that's as old as people. So finding out what was important to me to have on my calendar, what was important to me to acknowledge, there were things I'd never acknowledged before in any sort of intentional, aware capacity that I now yearly celebrate, that I just love having on my calendar. And as part of this, I realized that I needed to make my own calendar, because guess what? Most of these things don't show up on a traditional mainstream calendar anymore. And they certainly don't show up by the name that I would use. And along those same lines, there are so many different names for the moons. I kind of got to cherry pick. I got to pick the name that made the most sense to me personally for that moon. And then I went beyond that and said, well, what are my names for the moons? What is the meaning for me every year of the certain times of year? And you can do the same thing. You can do this for yourself. You can chart what's important for you to be celebrating. And somewhere along the way, probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I realized that I'm tired of celebrating my birthday on my birthday. It's a summer birthday. Most people are on vacation. It was always hard to get a birthday group together. I was never very good at picking activities that people really wanted to do with me. I've always kind of had my own thing that I wanted to do. And it's fun to do it with other people, but I used this as an opportunity to pick a different day that I was going to celebrate, that didn't have bad memories or letdowns associated with it. That was a day I was going to celebrate myself on my own, in my own way. Did not matter if other people knew about it, celebrated it with me, or not. And that's been a real gift. It's been really fun. I actually just picked a day about 3 or 4 weeks before my actual birthday, or after, I don't remember. And that's the day that I celebrate. And so there's so much freedom in charting what is meaningful to you to celebrate throughout the year, and picking those things and putting those things on your calendar as part of creating your calendar every year, and really getting to honor what you find to be sacred, to be worthy of specialness, or a special day, and to acknowledge the days that are important to us, whether we want them to be or not. I was a nanny. I was the primary caretaker for a little girl for a couple of years, for her toddler years, basically. And I love her so much. And I feel sad every day on her birthday, every year on her birthday. It's in April. Because the last year that I took care of her was the last year I ever saw her. Her family moves around a lot. Her parents have sort of high-profile jobs that move them around the country and around the world. And So we're not in contact, and that hurts. It's a big loss to me. And so I could imagine, putting on your calendar the day that a loved one passed away as a day that you can prepare to acknowledge it, and you don't get blindsided by it when you suddenly realize this is that day. Oh my God, here I am in the grocery store and I'm going to, just burst into tears, or whatever that looks like for you. You can set that day aside, and it's okay to do that, and plan to honor the person that you love and that you lost on that day. Or pick a day that is the day that you celebrate all and honor all of those people, if there are several people. It's never wrong to love. It's never wrong to love, as long as it's done with respect and healthy boundaries, but what we do privately to honor the people who have had important meanings to us, that's not wrong. That's a good thing. So I hope this is a useful thing, a tool that you can add to your toolkit, that it's okay to make your own calendar, to make your own holy days, holidays, to recognize and plan for what is important to you, so that you can celebrate or mourn, or simply recognize privately for 5 minutes before you go to work, whatever that looks like for you, that's important, that thing that you are setting aside time for, that you're writing in your calendar, actually matters to you. And it's not just, a banker's day off. So that's what I had to share today. I hope you're having a good day. I'm trying this kind of sideways look today because all this sunlight is just shining in, and I wanted you to be able to see my eyes through my glasses. And I've got this extra light over here so that I don't look like I have a crooked face because of the lighting. Hopefully that's helped. We'll see. But mostly just blessings. Blessings on your journey, whatever that journey looks like for you. Be well. We'll talk again soon.